Sunday lunch at my dad's house had been the one thing that didn't change after my mom passed. First Sunday of every month. Same table. Same oversized bowl of pasta from the Italian place down the street. Same polite questions about work. Same quiet competition no one admitted was happening. I pulled into the driveway a little after noon. Danielle's SUV was already there, spotless as usual. I'd just rotated back from a 6-month cyber tasking that kept me bouncing between Fort Meade and Tampa. I was still on East Coast time, still waking up before 0500 without an alarm. Sunday lunch felt like the only thing on my calendar that didn't require a badge. Danielle opened the door before I rang the bell. She looked like she was headed to a country club brunch instead of our dad's dining room. "Brooke, you made it." Her tone had that subtle surprise, like she wasn't sure I would. Her kids were in the living room. Ava, 11, now scrolling on her phone. The twins were arguing over something on the TV. Paul stood by the kitchen counter checking emails. Business casual. Always on display. Dad was plating garlic bread like it was a formal event. "Good to have everyone here," he said. Danielle scanned me top to bottom. Jeans, navy sweater, low heels, nothing flashy. "Still keeping it simple," she said. "Government life." I smiled. "It pays the bills." She laughed lightly. "I'm sure it does. Steady is good." Steady. That word again. We sat down. Dad poured iced tea. Paul talked about a listing he'd just closed in Arlington. Danielle mentioned a friend who bought a second place in the Outer Banks. The conversation moved the way it always did. Private sector growth, real estate markets, school tuition, summer plans. Danielle turned to Dad. "We were thinking about July at the lake. The kids love it there. Maybe 2 weeks this time." Dad nodded automatically. "If it's open, sure." "It will be," she said. "It's family." She looked at me briefly. "Do you ever get time off like that? Or does the Army just schedule your life?" "I get leave," I said. "Just have to request it. Must be hard not having flexibility." It wasn't a question. Ava glanced up from her phone. "Mom, are we still going to the beach house in August?" "That's the plan," Danielle said. "We're lucky." Lucky. The pasta went around the table. The twins started eating before Dad finished saying grace. Danielle corrected their posture, adjusted napkins, reminded them about manners. She did it all loudly enough for the room to hear. Ava watched me take a bite. "Why does Aunt Brooke eat so fast?" Danielle didn't miss a beat. "Some people don't grow up with formal dinners, honey." I kept chewing. Paul smirked into his glass. Dad shifted in his chair. "It's just lunch." Ava tilted her head. "Mom says poor people should stand while we eat." The table went silent. She didn't whisper it. She didn't test it. She announced it like a fact she'd memorized. Danielle's hand froze midair. "Ava," she said. But there was no real correction behind it. Ava kept going. "You said rich people sit and poor people stand. Like servants." Paul let out a low laugh. Danielle tried to smile. "That's not exactly—" "You said it," Ava insisted. The twins were staring now. Dad cleared his throat. "Let's not turn this into something." Ava looked at me directly. "So if you're poor, shouldn't you stand?" There it was. No sarcasm, no humor, just clean delivery. Danielle finally spoke up. "Ava, that's not polite." But she didn't say it wasn't true. Paul tapped the table lightly with his fingers. "Kids repeat what they hear." His tone suggested the kid wasn't wrong. I looked at my dad. He avoided my eyes for a second, then said, "It's just words. Don't overreact. Just words." I'd sat through years of comments about government salaries, about how private equity moved faster, about how real money wasn't in uniform. I'd never corrected them. I'd never explained my portfolio, my investments, the rentals I'd bought over the last 6 years. I didn't need to. My job wasn't a debate club. Ava folded her hands on the table. "Mom says poor people should stand while we eat." Danielle didn't clap. She didn't laugh. She also didn't shut it down. Paul leaned back. "It's not meant to be mean. It's just reality. Some people build wealth, some people don't." Dad finally looked at me. "No one's attacking you." It didn't feel like an attack. It felt instructional, like they were explaining a hierarchy I'd somehow missed. I stood up. No dramatic speech. No chair scraping across the floor. Just stood. Danielle watched, confused. "You're being sensitive," she said. I grabbed my bag from the hallway table. Brooke, Dad said, "Sit down." I didn't. Ava looked satisfied, like a rule had just been enforced. I walked out the front door without another word. No one followed me. The driveway was quiet. I got in my car and closed the door. For a few seconds, I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. Sunday lunch. Same table, same competition. Only this time they'd said the quiet part out loud. I started the engine and pulled away from the curb. By the time I reached the main road, my phone was already in my hand, scrolling to a number I hadn't needed in a while. I hit call before I changed my mind. "Eastern Shore Property Management," the receptionist answered. "It's Brooke Callahan," I said. "I need to schedule emergency rekey service for Lakeshore Drive today." There was a pause while she pulled up the file. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I just want all exterior locks replaced and deactivate the smart lock codes." "Understood." "Same instructions for the other properties?" "Yes. Blue Ridge Cabin and the Delaware condo. All three." She didn't ask questions. That's why I hired them. By the time I got home, I had confirmation emails for locksmith dispatch windows. Emergency rate. After-hours fee. Worth every dollar. I set my bag on the kitchen counter and stood there for a minute. My townhouse was quiet. Neutral walls. Basic furniture. Nothing about it suggested portfolio owner. That was intentional. 6 years earlier, the lake house hadn't looked like much either. Foreclosure? Peeling paint. Dock leaning slightly to one side. The kind of listing most buyers skip. Danielle had called Dad that spring. "All our friends have vacation places. It's embarrassing," she'd said. I was at Dad's house that day and heard it from the hallway. Dad had sighed. "I'm retired, Danny. I can't just buy waterfront property." I didn't say anything at the time. I just started running numbers. The lake house was listed at $350,000. Needed about $80 in structural and cosmetic work. I had savings from 2 overseas rotations and a deployment bonus I never spent. I put 25% down on a conventional loan, no VA benefits involved. Clean standard paperwork. I hired licensed contractors, pulled permits. Inspections passed. Renovation took 4 months. When it was done, I handed Dad a key. "For family use," I told him. I never said I owned it. He never asked. Danielle showed up the first summer with matching swimsuits for the kids and posted pictures captioned, "Our family lake tradition." I let it ride. It didn't cost me anything except silence. 2 years later, I bought the Blue Ridge Cabin. Smaller purchase, similar structure. Same property manager. Same arrangement. Dad had a key. Danielle assumed ownership by default. The Delaware condo came last. Beachfront units appreciate quickly if you pick the right block. I picked the right block. All 3 properties were in my name. Mortgage payments auto-drafted. Rental income deposited into a separate account. Every year I filed the required financial disclosure forms through the Army. Real estate assets listed. LLC interest declared. Ethics office had no issue because I didn't manage day-to-day operations. I owned. A licensed company operated. Nothing hidden. Just not advertised. My phone buzzed. "Danielle." I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, Dad called. I answered. "What happened at lunch?" he asked. "You were there. You didn't have to leave." I wasn't going to stand. Silence. "She's a kid, Brooke." She repeated something she learned. Dad exhaled. "Danny talks about money. That doesn't mean she believes you're beneath her." She let it stand. He didn't respond to that. "Look," he said finally, "we all say things we don't mean. Some things you don't say unless you mean them." I ended the call before it turned into something circular. Another notification came through dispatch confirmed for the lake house between 6 and 8 p.m. Blue Ridge scheduled for first thing in the morning. Delaware by noon. I opened my laptop and pulled up the deed files. Clean PDFs. Recorded copies with county stamps. Purchase date 2018-20, 2020-22. I drafted a short email. Subject line: property access update. Effective immediately. Access to 847 Lakeshore Drive, 2341 Mountain View Road, and 619 Coastal Highway is restricted to the legal owner. All locks have been changed. Any prior keys or access codes are no longer valid. If you need to retrieve personal belongings, contact my attorney to schedule a supervised time. I attached the deeds. I didn't add commentary. No lecture. No emotion. Before sending it, I picked up the phone again. This time I called my commander. Sir, I need to self-report a potential family dispute involving privately owned property. He didn't sound surprised. Anything that could affect clearance? No, sir. All assets are fully disclosed. There may be some emotional fallout. A brief pause. Documentation in order. Yes, sir. Then you're fine. Keep it clean and don't engage publicly. Yes, sir. Call ended. I hit send. For a few hours, nothing happened. I cooked dinner, answered 2 work emails, folded laundry. At 7:12 p.m., my phone started vibrating nonstop. Danielle. Paul. Dad. I let it ring. Finally, a text from Danielle. What did you do? Another one. The lake house isn't opening. I typed back once. Check your email. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. This isn't funny. It wasn't meant to be. Dad called again. I answered. Brooke, why are there deeds attached to an email Danny just sent me? Because those properties are mine. Since when? Since I bought them. He went quiet long enough that I checked the screen to make sure the call hadn't dropped. You never said. You never asked. I thought, I know. He cleared his throat. Danny has plans for July. Then she can make new ones. That's not how family works. It is when someone tells you to stand while they eat. He started to respond, but I ended the call gently, not abruptly. There was nothing left to clarify. Another message came through from Paul. You're overreacting. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, a photo arrived in the group text. Danielle standing in front of the lake house door. Key in hand. Expression tight. Under it, she wrote, "This is humiliating." I looked at the time. 8:03 p.m. Right on schedule. I set the phone face down on the table and leaned back in my chair. The dock had been reinforced 3 summers ago. The paint redone last year. Insurance premiums up to date. Mortgage balance lower than market value by a comfortable margin. Humiliating wasn't the word I would have chosen. Ownership was. The phone kept lighting up on my kitchen table, but I let it buzz itself tired. At 8:17 p.m., the property manager sent a confirmation photo from the lake house, new deadbolt, installed keypad. Replaced door secured. The timestamp was clear. Work order complete. Blue Ridge would be first thing in the morning. Delaware by noon. Danielle called again. I answered this time. What is wrong with you? She demanded. Nothing. You locked us out. I secured my property. She let out a short laugh that wasn't amused. Your property, Brooke, stop. I'm not joking. Paul's voice came faintly in the background. Put it on speaker. Danielle did. This is ridiculous, Paul said. Those houses are Dad's. You can't just hijack them. They're not Dad's. Silence. Check the deeds I sent, I said. County records are public. You attached paperwork to scare us. Danielle shot back. That doesn't mean you own them. It does. Another pause. I could hear them whispering, scrolling, probably zooming in on my name printed clearly under grantee. This says 2018, Paul said slowly. That's when I bought it. With what? Danielle asked. Army pay. With savings investment returns and a conventional loan. She sounded genuinely confused. You don't make that kind of money. I make enough. Paul tried a different angle. If you own them, why let us use them like that? Because Dad asked for a place the family could gather. And now Danielle pressed. Now access is restricted. You're punishing the kids. I'm setting a boundary. She scoffed. Over something Ava said. Over something you believe. She didn't deny it. Dad texted separately. Call me. I waited a few minutes before dialing him back. Brooke, he began carefully. This is escalating. It doesn't have to. You blindsided us. You assumed. That lake house has been part of this family for years. It's been part of my balance sheet. He didn't appreciate that. You should have told me, he said. I didn't need to. You let Danny think. I let her assume. He sighed. She's embarrassed. That's not my responsibility. You've made your point. This isn't about a point. What is it about then? Respect. He fell quiet. You could have corrected Ava at the table, I continued. You didn't. It was awkward. It was clear. He changed direction. Are you planning to keep them locked out permanently? Yes. That's extreme. It's ownership. He didn't argue after that. The next morning, I drove into Fort Meade early. I had a 900 meeting about network compliance updates, and unlike family drama that actually required precision. Before heading into the building, I stopped by legal assistance to confirm something simple. No implied tenancy, no shared ownership risk. The attorney reviewed the deeds and the email I'd sent. "You're sole owner," she said. "No written agreements granting them rights. No rental payments from them. Never. Then you're fine. If they show up and refuse to leave after being told access is revoked, it's trespass." Understood. I thanked her and went to my meeting. While my team discussed patch cycles and audit logs, my phone vibrated quietly in my bag. I didn't check it until lunch. Danielle had sent 12 messages. "This is cruel. The twins are crying. We already told people about July. You're humiliating us." I responded once. Humiliation wasn't my choice. A minute later, she called again. "You can't just erase family tradition," she said. "I didn't erase anything. You locked us out of what Dad built." "Dad didn't build it. You're splitting hairs." "No, I'm reading documents." Paul took over. "Let's be adults. If you want credit, fine. Put your name on it publicly. But don't weaponize it. It's not a weapon. Feels like one. It's a lock." He didn't laugh. "You've always been sensitive about money," Danielle said. "This is about your pride." "No," I replied calmly. "It's about your hierarchy." She went quiet at that. Mid-afternoon, the Blue Ridge manager emailed. "Confirmation locks changed garage code. Reset keys secured." Delaware followed shortly after. 3 properties, 3 confirmations, clean and documented. At 5:42 p.m., Paul texted in the family group chat, "We're driving to the cabin this weekend. The kids need normalcy." I replied, "You don't have access." Danielle responded almost instantly, "We'll see about that." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and forwarded the trespass notice draft from my attorney to Danielle and Paul. "Effective immediately, you are not authorized to enter or occupy the properties located at 847 Lakeshore Drive, 2341 Mountain View Road, or 619 Coastal Highway. Any attempt to access without written permission will be considered trespassing under state law." Formal. Direct. No adjectives. Dad called again that evening. "Danny says you involved a lawyer." "Yes, this is family. And this is real estate. She thinks you're trying to cut her out." "I am." He absorbed that. "She feels betrayed. I was told to stand." He didn't challenge it this time. After we hung up, I reviewed my financial dashboard. Mortgage balances, insurance renewals, rental projections. The numbers were steady. Steady had never been an insult to me. At 8:30 p.m., Danielle posted a vague message on social media. "Some people let power go to their heads." No names, just implication. A few mutual friends commented with confused emojis and private messages started trickling in. I didn't respond publicly. At 9:12 p.m., another text came through from Paul. "We're going to the cabin Saturday anyway. The kids have bags packed." I looked at the timestamp, then at the calendar. Saturday. Blue Ridge County Sheriff's Office had jurisdiction up there. I typed one line back. "Do not enter that property." Then I set the phone down and turned off the lights in my living room. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Inside, everything was locked. Saturday morning started with a text at 7:06 a.m. "We're here." No greeting, no punctuation. Just a photo of the Blue Ridge cabin driveway, Paul's SUV parked in front of the garage. I was already awake. I usually am before sunrise. I read the message once and didn't respond. 2 minutes later, another text. "The code isn't working." That was the point. I set my coffee down and called the property manager instead of Danielle. "They showed up?" she asked. "Yes. Locks were changed Thursday. Codes wiped. Only you and the emergency contact have access." "Good. Do you want me to notify local authorities if they refuse to leave?" "Yes. If they attempt entry, call the sheriff's office." She didn't hesitate. Professional. That's why I pay her. My phone rang again. "Danielle." I answered. "You really went through with it," she said. "I told you I would. The kids are in the car. Then you should drive somewhere they're welcome." "You're unbelievable." "You were warned." Paul's voice cut in from somewhere near the dashboard. "We're not breaking in. We're family." "You're not authorized." "This is insane," Danielle snapped. "We have pictures of us here every year. You also have pictures at restaurants you don't own." Silence. "You're humiliating us in front of neighbors," she said. "You drove 2 hours after being told not to. We thought you'd cool down." I didn't. A car door slammed on their end. The twins were arguing in the background. Ava's voice carried faintly through the speaker. "Why can't we go in?" Danielle muted herself briefly. I could hear muffled explanations. When she came back on, her tone had shifted. "Dad is upset," she said. "He thinks you're going too far." Dad thought I should stand. That's not what he meant. It's what he said. She exhaled sharply. "You're twisting everything." "No, I'm clarifying." Paul took over again. "We're staying in the driveway until you fix this. That's your choice." "You're really going to make this public?" "I didn't make it public." Locks and sheriff cars tend to attract attention. I didn't respond. Instead, I called the property manager again. "They're still there," I said. "Understood. I'll notify the sheriff's office for a welfare check and property verification." "That's fine." Within 15 minutes, Danielle texted again. "Are you serious right now?" Followed by, "There's a patrol car here." I didn't reply. Dad called. "Brooke," he began. Voice strained. "A deputy is at the cabin." "Yes. Did you call the police on your sister?" "I authorized the property manager to enforce ownership. They're not criminals. They're not tenants either. You could have handled this privately." "I did." "They're embarrassed. That seems to be a pattern." He didn't appreciate that comment. "Danny says the deputy asked for identification. That's standard. She feels attacked. She's being informed." I heard him sigh deeply. "You've made your point. This isn't about making a point. It looks like revenge. It looks like property law." He went quiet. After we hung up, Danielle sent another photo. The Blue Ridge County Sheriff's cruiser parked near the driveway. Paul standing beside it, arms crossed. Danielle near the porch talking animatedly to a deputy. Then a final message. "We're leaving." "Good," I typed back. An hour later, Paul sent one more. "This isn't over." I didn't answer that either. By early afternoon, social media started to buzz. Danielle had posted a story about misunderstandings in families and power trips. She didn't name me, but anyone who'd seen her lake house photos over the years could connect dots. A mutual acquaintance texted me privately. "Is everything okay with your sister? She sounds stressed." I replied with a simple, "Everything is handled." At 3:15 p.m., Dad called again. "They're back home," he said. I assumed. "She's furious," I gathered. "She says you're trying to erase her. I'm limiting access to assets I purchased." That's such a cold way to talk about this. "It's accurate." He paused. "Do you even want a relationship with your sister?" "I want respect." "Is that worth all this?" "Yes." He didn't argue further. Later that evening, Danielle tried a different tactic. She sent a long message. "You've always felt insecure about money. We never looked down on you. Ava misunderstood something I said months ago. You're blowing this up because you can't handle that we've done well." I read it twice. Then I responded. "You taught her. There are people who sit and people who stand. I'm choosing where I sit." She didn't reply immediately. Instead, Paul texted separately. "Let's be realistic. Those houses are worth what, $2 million combined. You're going to cut off your own family over that." I wrote back. "I'm not cutting off family. I'm ending assumptions." He sent one last line. "Dad didn't know." That part was true. Dad didn't know. He also never asked. By Sunday morning, the property manager emailed a short report. Blue Ridge. No forced entry. Deputy verified ownership via county records. Parties departed voluntarily. Delaware and Eastern Shore. No activity. Clean. Documented. I archived the email. At noon, Danielle posted another vague status. Some people forget where they came from. I didn't respond publicly. I spent the afternoon reviewing quarterly rental projections instead. Occupancy rates were solid. Summer bookings were already at 80%. Steady. That evening, Dad texted something simple. "We need to talk in person." I stared at the message for a moment, then set the phone down without replying. Outside, the light faded over the trees behind my townhouse. Inside, everything remained quiet, controlled, and exactly where I intended it to be. My office phone rang just after 900 on Tuesday. "Major Callahan. Can you step into the XO's office?" The tone wasn't dramatic, just neutral. Professional. Which in the Army usually means one of two things: paperwork or problems. I grabbed my notebook and walked down the hallway. The XO closed the door behind me. My battalion commander was already seated at the small conference table. Neither of them looked angry. They looked careful. Brooke, the commander, began. "We received an email over the weekend." I kept my expression steady. From anonymous sender. Claims to be a concerned family member. I didn't react. I didn't need to. The XO slid a printed copy across the table. The email alleged that I owned multiple rental properties and had failed to disclose outside income. It questioned whether I was using military position for financial gain. It hinted at ethics violations without directly stating one. Danielle had escalated. I've disclosed all real estate holdings annually, I said calmly. OGE financial forms. Ethics review complete each year. We know, the commander replied, but we still have to look into it. Understood. You currently own 3 vacation properties, the XO asked. Yes, sir. And an LLC. Yes, sir. It's a holding entity. No operational role. A licensed property management company handles day-to-day. Any government contracts involved? No, sir. Any tenants affiliated with DOD? No, sir. The commander leaned back slightly. This doesn't look like a violation. But perception matters. We'll conduct a preliminary review. Provide documentation by close of business. I have it ready. That made them both pause. You expected this, the XO asked. I anticipated escalation. Neither smiled, but I caught a flicker of understanding. Get us the documents, the commander said. And stay off social media. Yes, sir. I walked back to my office and closed the door. My pulse was steady. Not calm because I wasn't worried. Calm because I'd prepared. I opened the folder labeled Disclosure. Inside were PDFs of every annual filing since I made major. Property addresses listed. Estimated values. Mortgage balances. Rental income ranges. Ethics office sign-offs. No gaps, no surprises. I emailed everything to the XO and CC'd the ethics counselor directly. Within minutes, my phone buzzed. Danielle. I let it ring twice before answering. Did you think I wouldn't find out, she asked. Find out what? That you're using those houses to play games. I'm enforcing ownership. You think you're so untouchable because you wear a uniform. That's not how this works. Maybe someone should look at how you're making money. They are. Silence. What does that mean, she asked. It means your email was received. She didn't deny sending it. You don't get to act superior, she snapped. You hide things. I disclose them to the only people who matter. So you admit you hid it from family. I chose privacy. That's deceit. That's boundaries. She let out a sharp breath. We were just trying to show you how the real world works. I've lived in the real world my entire adult life. You sit behind computers. I defend networks that protect yours. She went quiet for a beat. You think this is about respect, she said. It's about ego. No, I replied evenly. It's about you teaching your daughter there are people who deserve chairs and people who don't. That was a metaphor. It didn't sound like one. She lowered her voice. You're overreacting. If I were overreacting, this would look very different. I ended the call before it spiraled into repetition. An hour later, the ethics counselor stepped into my office. Brooke, I reviewed your file, she said. Everything is declared. Clean. But because of the complaint, we'll annotate your next OGE filing with an additional memo for clarity. Understood. Just keep separation clear. No active management decisions during duty hours. I know. She paused. Family disputes can get messy. I've noticed. Back at my desk, I saw another text from Paul. You dragged the army into this. I responded. No, you did. A few minutes later, Dad called. What have you done now? He asked, exhaustion heavy in his voice. I submitted documentation. Danny says your unit is investigating you. They're verifying. She thought you were hiding income. I wasn't. She's worried. She escalated. She feels threatened. By paperwork. By control. I leaned back in my chair. Control isn't the same as ownership. He didn't answer that directly. She thought those houses were Dad's, he said quietly. She never asked. You could have told her. Why? To avoid this. This isn't about confusion. It's about assumption. He sighed. You're both stubborn. I'm consistent. After we hung up, I finished my workday like any other. Status reports. Cyber readiness metrics. Briefing slides for an upcoming inspection. Professional life didn't bend just because personal life did. At 1600, the XO emailed back. Preliminary review indicates no ethics violation. Documentation complete. No further action required at this time. Clean. I forwarded the email to Danielle without commentary. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. You're enjoying this, she accused. No. You sent me that email on purpose. Yes. To embarrass me. To inform you. You think you're better than us. I think I'm accountable. She didn't like that word. You always had something to prove, she said. I don't need to prove ownership. It's recorded. She exhaled sharply. You've changed. No, I said. I've clarified. There was a long pause. You could unlock them, she said finally. We could move past this. I'm past it. You're going to regret this. I've reviewed the risks. She hung up. I looked around my office. Certificates on the wall. Promotion board results pending but likely. Clearance intact. Record clean. Whatever she'd hoped to shake loose hadn't moved. My phone buzzed one more time before I left for the day. A text from Paul. This isn't just about houses anymore. I slipped the phone into my pocket and walked out into the parking lot without answering. I read the subject line twice before opening it. Security office, clarification required. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't accusatory. It was procedural, which in my world carries more weight than emotion ever could. The email requested a brief meeting regarding an external allegation tied to financial interests. Standard language. Standard tone. I closed my office door and forwarded the message to the ethics counselor with a short note. All documents previously provided. Please confirm receipt. Then I headed to the security office. The civilian security manager greeted me with a nod. No tension. Just routine. Major Callahan, thanks for coming in. Of course. She gestured to a chair. A second staff member was present, typing quietly. We received a third-party allegation suggesting undisclosed income from rental properties. You've already provided financial disclosure forms through your chain of command. This is just a clearance side verification. Understood. She flipped through a printed copy of my OGE filings. 3 properties listed. Eastern Shore, Blue Ridge, Delaware. Yes. Conventional financing. Yes. Property management outsourced. Yes. Contracted through licensed firms. No day-to-day involvement. Any foreign nationals as tenants? No. Any tenants affiliated with foreign governments? No. Any cash transactions? Never. She nodded and made a note. Rental income declared on tax returns? Yes. Mortgage payments current? Yes. She glanced at her colleague. Everything aligns with prior filings. The other staffer looked up. We just needed to confirm no omission. Anonymous complaints require documentation. I kept my tone neutral. I understand. She closed the folder. From a clearance standpoint, this does not indicate financial irresponsibility or concealment. Your record remains in good standing. Clean, again. Appreciate the clarity, I said. Off the record, she added, lowering her voice slightly. Family disputes tend to trigger these. It's not uncommon. I assumed as much. She gave a faint smile. Just make sure nothing escalates into legal judgments or civil suits. Those can complicate reporting. It won't. I left the office and stepped back into the hallway. The fluorescent lighting looked exactly the same as it had an hour earlier. No dramatic shift. No crisis narrowly avoided. Just confirmation. Outside, my phone vibrated. Danielle. I didn't answer. She texted instead. Did they call you in? I typed back. Yes. Another message came immediately. And closed. No issue. There was a longer pause before she replied. You're unbelievable. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and headed to the afternoon briefing. My team presented readiness updates while I tracked notes on compliance metrics. My mind stayed where it belonged. The Army does not reward distraction. When the meeting ended, the commander caught up with me in the hallway. Security cleared it, he said quietly. Yes, sir. Keep documentation tight. Promotion board results are coming down soon. Don't give anyone an excuse to question optics. I won't. He studied me for a second. You handling everything okay? Yes, sir. He nodded once and moved on. In the parking lot later that evening, Dad called again. They contacted you, he asked. Yes. Danny didn't think it would go that far. She forwarded it to my brigade email. She was trying to protect Dad's interests. Dad doesn't own the properties. She thought he did. She never confirmed that. She feels blindsided. She assumed. He hesitated. She didn't expect it to threaten your career. It didn't. That's not the point. It is from my perspective. He exhaled. She's embarrassed. She escalated. She thought you were hiding something. I wasn't. He shifted tone. Brooke, I don't want this turning into lawsuits. It won't. You promise? Yes. I ended the call and started the engine. Halfway home, another text from Paul came through. You got lucky. I responded once. Documentation isn't luck. He didn't reply. That evening, I logged into my financial dashboard and downloaded updated statements. I saved them into the disclosure folder. Not because anyone asked, because I prefer clean records. Danielle sent another message an hour later. You've made your point. Can we reset this? I read it twice. Reset implied returning to the previous arrangement. Keys in Dad's drawer. Summer plans assumed. Instagram captions unchanged. No. I replied with one line. Access remains restricted. She didn't respond. Around 10 p.m., I received an email notification from a mutual acquaintance. Saw Danny's posts. Everything okay? Danielle had apparently posted something about false accusations and power trips. Still vague. Still indirect. I didn't comment. Silence was cleaner. Before going to bed, I reviewed the cabin's booking calendar. Summer weekends filling quickly. Rental income steady. No gaps that depended on family occupancy. Steady. The next morning, I arrived at work to find a small envelope on my desk. No return address. Inside was a printed screenshot of Danielle's social media post with a handwritten note across the bottom. Family shouldn't treat family like this. No signature. I folded the paper once and dropped it into my shred bin. Midday, the security office sent a final confirmation email. Review complete. No adverse findings. Clearance remains active with no conditions. Clear. Documented. Closed. I forwarded it to my personal archive folder and closed my laptop. My phone buzzed again as I stood up from my desk. A short message from Danielle. We went by the cabin again today. I read it but didn't respond immediately. A second text followed. The neighbor took pictures. I slipped my phone into my pocket and walked out of the building without replying. I pulled into my driveway just as my phone buzzed again. There was a photo attached. Blue Ridge Cabin. Paul's SUV, parked at an angle across the gravel. Danielle standing near the porch, arms crossed. The same porch they'd been told not to approach. Under the photo, a message. We're not leaving this time. I stood there for a moment with the car engine still running. Then I called the property manager. They're back, she asked. Yes. Attempting entry. According to them, they're staying. She didn't hesitate. I'll notify the sheriff's office. They've already been advised of ownership. Thank you. I ended the call and finally responded to Danielle. You were told not to enter the property. A reply came within seconds. We're not entering. We're sitting in the driveway. That driveway was still private property. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown Blue Ridge County number. I answered. Major Callahan, a calm male voice asked. Yes, this is Deputy Harris with the Blue Ridge County Sheriff's Office. We're at your cabin on Mountain View Road. Yes, Deputy. We have 2 adults and 3 minors on site. They state their family. They claim there's a misunderstanding. There isn't. Are you the sole owner of the property? Yes. Deed recorded under my name. You should have a copy from Thursday. We do. Access was revoked. They were notified in writing. Yes, ma'am. We have that documentation. Then they're trespassing. There was a brief pause on his end. They're currently in the driveway. Not attempting forced entry. The driveway is part of the property. Yes, ma'am. We've advised them of that. Thank you. We'll request they leave voluntarily. I appreciate it. He hesitated slightly. Would you like to press charges if they refuse? No. Understood. The call ended. Within 2 minutes, Danielle texted. Did you just send a deputy here again? I didn't respond. Another message followed. The kids are scared. Then one more. The neighbor is filming. I set the phone down and went inside. 5 minutes later, another call from the same Blue Ridge number. They're departing, Deputy Harris said. No further action needed. Thank you. If they return after being advised, the situation changes. I understand. After I hung up, my phone lit up with a video Danielle had sent. Paul arguing quietly with a uniformed deputy. Ava in the back seat staring straight ahead. The twins whispering to each other. Danielle's caption under the video, "You're doing this to children." I typed one sentence. You drove them there. She didn't answer. Instead, Dad called. What are you thinking? He demanded. I'm thinking about liability. They weren't breaking in. They were on private property after written notice. They're family. That doesn't override ownership. You've made your point. This isn't about a point. He sounded tired now. The neighbors are watching. That's not my concern. It should be. Why? Because this is humiliating. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Dad, I was told to stand. That was a child repeating something. And you agreed. Silence. I didn't mean it like that, he said quietly. But you didn't correct it. He didn't respond. Danny thinks you're trying to erase her from the family, he added. I'm restricting access to assets I purchased. You're speaking like a lawyer. I'm speaking accurately. He exhaled. What do you want? Respect. He didn't argue that time. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and pulled up the county property records again. Clean entries. My name. My signature. My responsibility. No co-owners. No trusts. No shared titles. My phone buzzed again. Paul. You could have handled this privately, I responded. You were told not to return. He sent back. You don't need deputies to prove ownership. No, I didn't. But they needed clarity. An hour later, a mutual acquaintance texted me. Saw Danny at the cabin. Everything okay? I replied. Yes, that was all. Around 7 p.m., Danielle posted a longer message online about toxic control disguised as success. She didn't mention names. She didn't need to. People in her circle knew which cabin she meant. Comments started appearing underneath, some supportive, some confused. One asked directly, "Wait, who actually owns it?" She didn't answer that one. At 8:30 p.m., Dad texted again. "This has gone too far." I read it and set the phone down without replying. The next morning, I received an email from the property manager. Incident report. Blue Ridge Cabin. Summary. Family members returned to property after written notice. Deputy Harris responded. Parties departed voluntarily. No damage observed. Attached were time-stamped photos. Clean driveway. Intact porch. No forced entry. Documented. Filed. Later that afternoon, my commander stopped by my office. Heard there was another law enforcement interaction, he said casually. Yes, sir. No charges. No, sir. Good. He studied me briefly. Keep it clean. Promotion board results should drop soon. Yes, sir. He nodded and walked away. As I packed up to leave for the day, my phone buzzed one more time. A short message from Danielle. You've embarrassed us enough. I looked at the screen for a few seconds before locking it. Outside the sky was clear. No drama. No noise. Just another evening settling in exactly on schedule. I called my realtor before I poured my morning coffee. Thinking about listing Lakeshore Drive, I said. There was a pause on the other end. The waterfront place, that one's performing well. I know. You sure? Yes. Market's strong right now, she said. Inventory's low. You'd likely get multiple offers. That's the idea. We scheduled a walkthrough for Thursday. By noon, I had the latest comps pulled. Waterfront properties in that zip code had climbed nearly 12% year over year. If I sold now, I'd clear a comfortable margin after mortgage payoff and closing costs. Financially, it made sense. Emotionally, it made even more sense. The lake house had become a stage, not a retreat. That afternoon, I emailed the property manager. Prepare Lakeshore for listing. Pause all future family access permanently. She replied within minutes. Understood. Staging vendor available Friday. I didn't announce the decision to anyone in my family. There was no meeting required for something recorded in my name. Thursday's walkthrough was quick. The dock still solid. The kitchen upgrades holding value. No deferred maintenance. Clean lines. Clean books. My realtor stood on the back deck looking out over the water. You've taken good care of it, she said. I pay people to. She laughed. You'll do well on this one. I expect so. We signed the listing agreement that afternoon. MLS would go live Monday morning. Friday evening, Dad called. Danny heard from someone that you're meeting with a realtor, he said carefully. I am. You're not actually selling. Yes. He was silent for a moment. That house has memories. It has equity. She thought July was still happening. She shouldn't have. You're ending the tradition. I'm ending the assumption. He sounded tired. You're cutting the family in half over a comment. I'm selling an asset at peak market value. That's not the same. It is for me? He didn't push further. On Monday at 8:02 a.m., the listing went live. Professional photos. Drone shots of the shoreline. Clean description. No mention of family. Just square footage, acreage, dock depth, and proximity to town. By 2 p.m., there were 3 showing requests. By 6 p.m., 5. Danielle texted at 6:14. You listed it. Yes. You didn't even tell Dad first. He knows. This is cruel. It's business. That was all I sent. An hour later, Paul called. You're blowing up everything he said. I'm reallocating capital. Don't talk like that. Why? Because this is personal. It became personal when you brought deputies into it. You did that. You went back. Silence. You don't have to sell, he tried again. Just unlock it. No. You're acting like we stole something. You tried to use something you don't own. That's different. Not legally. He let out a breath. You're going to regret burning bridges. I'm selling a property. And what does that make us? Guess whose reservation expired? He didn't laugh. By Wednesday, an offer came in above asking. Cash. 21-day close. Clean contingencies. I reviewed it that evening at my kitchen table. Numbers aligned. Net proceeds, solid. I signed. Thursday morning, Dad showed up at my townhouse unannounced. I opened the door. You're really doing this, he said. Yes. He stepped inside slowly. Looked around the small living room. I thought the lake house would always be ours. It was never ours. You let us believe it. I let you use it. That's not the same. No. He sat down heavily on the couch. Danny feels erased. She feels exposed. He rubbed his forehead. She told her friends it was inherited. It wasn't. You could have corrected her years ago. I didn't think it mattered. And now it does. He looked at me for a long moment. Do you hate your sister? No. Then why does this feel like punishment? Because she's used to access. He stood up. You're not unlocking it. No. And you're not keeping it. No. He shook his head slowly. You always were the quiet one. I still am. He left without arguing further. The inspection period passed without issue. Appraisal matched contract price. Title search clean. On closing day, I wired the payoff amount and signed the final documents electronically. By mid-afternoon, the lake house no longer appeared in my asset list. Equity transferred. Mortgage closed. Property sold. Danielle called just after 5 p.m. You sold our lake house, she said. I sold my lake house. The kids are asking questions. Answer them. You're unbelievable. I'm consistent. She went quiet for a moment. So that's it, she asked. That's it. She hung up. That evening, I opened my financial dashboard and transferred a portion of the proceeds into a separate account labeled Vermont. There were properties up there I'd been watching for months. Ski access. Year-round rental potential. Clean HOA structures. No extra keys planned. No shared assumptions. Just ownership. I closed the laptop and turned off the lights. The email came through at 6:12. Subject line promotion selection results. Lieutenant Colonel. I was already awake, sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee and a calendar open in front of me. The Vermont listings were still bookmarked on my browser, but I minimized the window before opening the message. Selected. Short. Official. No exclamation points. No fanfare. I read it twice then, once more to be certain. The board had met weeks earlier. Packets reviewed. Records evaluated. OERs scrutinized. This wasn't connected to family drama cabin deputies or social media posts. This was years of work stacking in my favor. I closed the email and let out a slow breath. By 0700, my commander had already sent a congratulatory note. Well earned. Pinning ceremony in a few weeks. We'll coordinate details. I responded with a simple thank you. No public announcement yet. Those usually came later once official orders processed. But the result was locked. My phone buzzed a few minutes later. Dad. I saw it, he said as soon as I answered. How? Your uncle still has contacts. Word travels. It's not public yet. It will be. There was a pause. I'm proud of you, he added quietly. Thank you. He hesitated. Danny knows. I assumed. She says it's convenient timing. It's not. I told her that. Silence stretched for a second. She still thinks this is about houses, he continued. It's not. It feels like a line in the sand. It is. He exhaled slowly. Will she be invited to the ceremony? Yes. You're serious? Yes. After everything, this isn't about exclusion. He didn't argue. That afternoon, Danielle texted. So you're a lieutenant colonel now. Selected. Ceremony pending. Must feel powerful. It feels earned. Another pause. Then, you always needed validation. I stared at that message for a moment. Validation doesn't come from a promotion board. It comes from documentation, discipline, and time. But I didn't type that. I responded with one line. The board met before any of this. She didn't reply. Over the next few weeks, life settled into its usual rhythm. The lake house funds cleared fully into my account. I wired earnest money on a ski property in Vermont. Clean contract. Conventional financing. Inspection scheduled. No family discussions. At work, preparations for the pinning ceremony began. Invitations drafted. Date locked. My commander stopped by my office one afternoon. You keeping it small, he asked. Yes, sir. Family attending. Yes, sir. He studied me briefly. You handled that complaint professionally. It wasn't complicated. It could have been. It wasn't. He nodded once. Good. The Vermont property passed inspection without issue. I signed final documents a week later. Keys mailed directly to me. No duplicates requested. The first time I walked through it, I noticed how quiet it was. Snow still clinging to the edges of the driveway. Clean air. No history attached. No one else had keys. On the day of the ceremony, I arrived early in dress uniform. Ribbons aligned. Shoes polished. Collar brass checked twice. Dad was seated near the front. He looked smaller than I remembered. Age has a way of doing that. Danielle arrived 5 minutes before start time. No dramatic entrance. No eye contact initially. Paul stayed home with the kids. She took a seat 2 rows behind Dad. The ceremony was brief. Oath reaffirmed. Rank insignia pinned. Applause controlled and professional. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. Leadership is about accountability. About owning your responsibilities and protecting what you're entrusted with. No metaphors. No references to recent events. Just facts. Afterward, a small reception in the adjacent room. Coffee, sheet cake, handshakes. Danielle approached slowly. Congratulations, she said. Thank you. She glanced at the silver oak leaves on my chest. You always did like structure. It works. There was an awkward pause. Dad says you bought something in Vermont, she added. Yes. For yourself. Yes. She nodded once. No spare keys. No. She let out a quiet breath. You've made your point. I didn't set out to. She studied my face as if looking for something, anger, maybe satisfaction. She didn't find either. Are we done fighting? She asked. I wasn't fighting. You locked us out, sold the lake house, called deputies. You were told not to return. She looked down briefly. Ava asked why she can't go back to the cabin. What did you tell her? That sometimes adults make mistakes. That's accurate. She met my eyes then. I didn't mean for that lunch to go that way. But it did. She nodded faintly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I never thought you were poor, she said finally. I thought you were predictable. I am. That's not an insult. No. Dad joined us before the silence stretched further. You both good? He asked. Yes, I said. Danielle hesitated, then nodded. We're fine. Fine was a practical word. Later that evening, after the guests left, and the uniform was carefully hung back in its garment bag, I sat alone at my kitchen table again. The house was quiet. My phone still for once. On the wall across from me hung the framed promotion certificate. Clean lines, official seal. My name centered. I didn't need to stand for anyone, and I didn't need anyone to sit either. Ownership had already settled into its place, clear documented and unshared. I turned the Vermont key myself. No spare copies, no envelope in Dad's kitchen drawer, no silent assumptions floating around about family access. Just a standard brass key and a clean lock that clicked exactly once. The place sat just outside a small ski town. 3 bedrooms, modest square footage, efficient layout. HOA that handled snow removal and exterior maintenance without drama. It wasn't flashy. It was functional. Functional works. The closing had gone smoothly. Conventional loan. 20% down from the lake house proceeds. Inspection clean. No deferred repairs hiding behind fresh paint. I walked through each room slowly, not because it was emotional, but because it was mine. The quiet felt different from the Eastern Shore quiet. Less water, more wind. Less nostalgia, more clarity. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Danielle. I let it ring once before answering. Dad said you closed, she said. I did. So that's the new place. Yes. For you. Yes. She paused. You didn't send pictures. I wasn't asked. Another pause. Ava wanted to know if there's a dock, she said. There's snow. That wasn't her question. There's no dock. Danielle exhaled softly. She's been asking about the cabin. What did you tell her? That we don't have access. That's accurate. There was a faint shift in her tone. Not defensive, not sharp. She said she didn't mean what she said at lunch, Danielle added. She was repeating something. I know. I didn't handle that well. No. She didn't argue. I didn't think it would go that far, she continued. It didn't. It went exactly where it needed to. You sold the lake house. Yes. That surprised me. It shouldn't have. Another silence settled between us. This one wasn't tense, just unfamiliar. You're different, she said finally. I'm consistent. That's what Dad said. I walked to the back window and looked out over the tree line. You're not unlocking the cabin, she said. No. And this place? No. She gave a short laugh. Not mocking, just acknowledging reality. Guess we'll need to book hotels like everyone else. That's how most people travel. She let that sit. Are we? Okay, she asked. We're clear. That's not the same. It's stable. She didn't push further. After we hung up, I unpacked a small overnight bag. A change of clothes, a folder with mortgage documents, my laptop. That night I sat at the small kitchen table in Vermont and reviewed rental projections for Blue Ridge and Delaware. Both were booked solid for the upcoming months. No gaps, no reliance on family occupancy, revenue steady. Steady had always sounded like an insult in Danielle's mouth. In mine, it sounded like control. The next morning, Dad called. How is it? He asked. Quiet. You always liked quiet. It's efficient. He chuckled softly. Danny says there's no extra key. There isn't. You're serious about that? Yes. He hesitated. I should have corrected her at that lunch. Yes. I didn't. I know. There was a long pause on his end. I didn't mean you should stand, he said. But you didn't mean I should sit either. He didn't respond immediately. I was trying to avoid conflict, he admitted. That is conflict. He sighed. You're right. We let that settle. I'm glad about the promotion, he added. Thank you. You earned it. Yes. That word hung there for a moment. Earned. Later that afternoon, I walked into town and signed up for a local property management referral list. If I ever decided to rent the Vermont place seasonally, it would be structured, documented, controlled. No informal access, no assumptions. Back at the house, I opened my laptop and drafted a short email to Danielle and Dad. Cabin and Delaware remain private assets. No shared access. Please plan accordingly for future travel. No anger, no explanation, just clarity. Danielle replied within 10 minutes. Understood. 2 words. Clean. A week later, I returned to Fort Meade. Work resumed at full pace. Budget reviews. Readiness metrics. A briefing for division leadership. My uniform now carried silver oak leaves. The weight felt the same. Responsibility increased. That part I welcomed. One evening after work, my phone buzzed again. Ava. She'd never texted me directly before. I'm sorry about what I said. I stared at the message for a moment. Why are you sorry? I typed back. Mom explained it better. I shouldn't have said that. Thank you for saying that. Another message appeared. Are you really not poor? I smiled slightly. No. She responded with a simple thumbs up, then nothing more. I set the phone down. Sunday came around again. Dad invited everyone over. Same first Sunday of the month. I went. Danielle was already there when I arrived. She looked at me, then at my collar, then back at my face. Lieutenant Colonel, she said. Danielle. No sarcasm, no edge. We sat at the table. Pasta again. Garlic bread again. Ava glanced at me once, then focused on her plate. No one mentioned standing. No one mentioned cabins. Dad poured iced tea and cleared his throat before anyone else could speak. Good to have everyone here, he said. We ate. No hierarchy discussion. No property updates. No social media references. Just food plates, chairs. I didn't need to make a point. The locks were already changed. Looking back, none of this started with real estate. It started with a sentence at a dining table. A belief about who gets to sit and who doesn't. Houses can be sold. Locks can be changed. Titles can be printed. But respect is either there or it isn't. I didn't win anything dramatic. I didn't destroy anyone. I enforced ownership. I clarified boundaries. I kept my record clean, my work steady, and my name where it belongs on the deeds I paid for and the rank I earned. Family isn't about who has access. It's about who shows respect. And sometimes the quietest decision is the strongest one. If you enjoy family revenge stories grounded in real consequences, real military life, and the kind of power that doesn't need to shout, make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's more coming, stories about boundaries, accountability, and what happens when people finally stop standing for less than they deserve.